Hello, my name is Orla and I'm an artist and an illustrator. I create work inspired by my love for nature and the outdoors, and I share my creative process through videos here on YouTube. Today I wanted to begin with an invitation. I'm starting two brand new things. The first is a brand new painting series, and the second is this video and the start of a brand new video series called Finding Your Flow. I wanted to invite you to join in with this brand new painting project with me, and to ask for your help, which I will get to in just a minute. So this new video series is called Finding Your Flow, and the idea behind it was to share ways that I've been finding more freedom, more self-expression, more looseness and playfulness in my own work. If you're looking for more of that in your own work, I hope that some of the things I mention across this series might help you find that space. Whilst I chat through these ideas on finding flow, I'll be documenting and sharing the painting process behind this new series of work. I'll be sharing everything from start to finish, including the things that go awry, so that you can get a sense of what goes into creating a collection of paintings, for me at least. As I go through this new series of work, I'll be documenting more of the process and the behind the scenes over on my Instagram. So if you'd like to see some of that, you'll find me on Instagram at Orla Stevens. I'll also be going into the nitty-gritty of my process through step-by-step tutorials over on my Patreon page, but more on that in a bit. So today marks the very start of a brand new painting series. As a precursor, I have spent the last probably about 6 months gathering research and inspiration in my sketchbooks. If you'd like to know more about my research process and stages that go into all of that background work, I've documented all of that through another couple of videos here on YouTube, and I'll pop a link to those up above and down below. So now that I've gathered all of that research and inspiration, it's time to really dig in and get started with these paintings. Today is all about development work. I'm going to be starting out with a couple of paintings on A5 size paper. I'm using watercolour paper, which is 200 GSM. This painting session is really a time and a place for me to start to tease out lots of different things from my sketchbooks, pulling out the colours, the marks, the textures, the lines that I've been gathering in these pages. These works are much more like loose leaf pages from my sketchbook than they are complete or final paintings. It's a really good way to start out a project because you're not putting the pressure to have final work yet, and that way the work can begin to roll more naturally. Before we get into painting, I wanted to quickly tell you what this painting collection is all about. After gathering all of that research over the last probably 6 months, I have finally landed on a title, and that title is Landscape Languages. This collection of work is going to be inspired by coastal landscapes in particular, and our relationship with the coast and water. If you've been following my work here on YouTube for a wee while, you might have seen the last series of paintings that I made. The collection was called The Alphabet of the Outdoors, and as a summary, it was looking to create one painting for every single letter of the alphabet, which in some way related to my own experience and relationships with outdoors. The project I'm doing now is building on that idea of using words as the source of inspiration and starting point for paintings, and to continue to reference nature and landscape in a very loose and free way. I'm also going to be bringing in the format of the paintings which are made in that series by taping very clean edges onto the works on paper. So in this sense, I'm looking to build on elements of consistency from my last series of work and learn from all of those paintings. And that leads me really nicely onto what I would love to ask for your help with in this project. In this series, Landscape Languages, I really wanted to have an element which is opened up to the community so that I can pull in other people's experiences and relationships with coastal landscapes, so that it's not all just about my own personal relationships with places. So I'd love to extend an invitation to leave a comment down below with a word or a phrase which summarises your relationships with coastal environments. Maybe that's an emotion, or maybe that is a phrase which harks back to a memory that you have with time spent on the coast. And with all of those words, I'm going to pull them into a word bank so that I have a really rich source of inspiration to pull from as I'm developing all of these paintings. The words form the very starting point to my paintings, and they later inform all of the colour choices, the mark making, the composition, the atmosphere, and finally, of course, the title of the work. So the words that are contributed will really form the heart of these paintings and the overall collection. With this series of works, I really wanted to challenge myself with language, and I thought what better way than to respond to other people's relationships with the coast. To get started with these development sketches, I've decided to put a few of my own words I connect to the coast into a hat and let chance decide which words to explore today. I haven't set out with an aim to paint a certain number of words, and instead I'm going to see what feels good and paint as many ideas as comes up while I'm working. I suppose that leads me to my very first takeaway from this session, and that has been to begin with a loose plan, but with a very open mind to change. I don't like to feel too trapped or tied down, and so I've begun with quite an open brief, which is to use words as the starting point and paint emotive responses to coastal environments as my inspiration, using lots of the textures, the colours and marks that I've gathered in my sketchbooks over the last few months. I notice myself getting much more tense when I'm too fixed on an idea or one specific direction. So for me, having multiple paintings to work on, with a loose direction or source of inspiration in mind, works very well. I really recommend this warm-up painting session as a way to start a project and get ideas going. Maybe this is even something you do at the start of every single painting session to get into the flow. Removing as much pressure as possible in the beginning is my favourite way to get started. You might also want to consider what size you'd like to start working on. Personally, I love to begin to tease out ideas on smaller sized paper, like these A5 pieces. I can work through many ideas very quickly as the pages are so small, and it feels almost like sampling, testing materials, colours and compositions as they come into my head. It can be really helpful in the beginning stages of a project to use what you're most comfortable with. For instance, if you're a person who loves working on really large scale, maybe beginning by getting some big sketches out on a roll of old wallpaper lining or other large sheets of paper might be the best way for you to ease into something new. To get you started, begin on surfaces and sizes which feel most natural and enjoyable for you to work with. Before I go any further into the video, it's probably worth sharing what I think flow means for me. To me, it's the place or the feeling that I get in my head and my body where I am totally focused, but in a relaxed way. It sometimes feels like hyperfocus, where everything else melts away and I am totally engrossed in what I'm doing. It's when my internal critic has gone on holiday somewhere and I am just making. I think flow is separate to the analysis part of your brain, and it's not got much conscious thinking going on, from my experience anyway. It's also worth saying that you don't need to be in a flow state to make good work, and flow is only one piece of a much larger puzzle in the creative process. Finding flow in making or doing anything can become its own source of pressure, which ironically always takes us further away from accessing that feeling. I hope some of the ideas scattered throughout this video series can help guide you out of that place and back towards more of a relaxed feeling whilst you're working. Something I've been thinking a lot about lately is consistency and flow, and how those two things work together. Originally, I thought that the two didn't have that much in common, but now, after a bit of dialogue with myself, I'm starting to change my mind. Let me explain. I think consistency and restriction often feel quite closely linked, especially when it comes to creative projects. However, without parameters or restrictions to work within, I for one can feel pulled in too many directions, too many options, way too much choice for an indecisive person like me. I've grown to love parameters and setting briefs for projects for this very reason. Instead of feeling hemmed in, it feels more like a challenge. How far can I push this one thing? How much can I do with, say, 4 materials or 6 brushes or a limited palette? Or only working from my imagination? Consistency comes in to be an amazing friend to help guide you through a new challenge or brief. I think consistency can really help facilitate us to get into a space of flow, because it means that many decisions have already been made for us. It can help reduce decision fatigue and lets us put our energy into creative problem solving within our limitations instead. I'm pulling many of the elements from my last series of work forwards. The way that I tape my works on paper, the materials that I use, the tools, using words as a starting point for paintings. I want to use this project to improve on my previous work by working in many of the same parameters. Of course, there are variations. I'm trying different paper stock, I'm using watercolour way more, and hopefully working from other people's words, memories, or stories rather than purely my own. Slowly adding variations like this in can help us figure out what we like or not, and why, which in turn I think can help us access flow a little more often by following the things that we love. Over the last few months, I've been breaking down the key elements of my practice into step-by-step tutorials through video and written guides. So far, I've documented my processes on mark making, drawing to sound, a couple of videos on colour and colour mixing, research sketching, value studies, and setting briefs. My recent tutorials have covered translating emotion into colour and marks, and inventing or reimagining landscapes. Each one is about painting freely and expressively, with a focus on semi-abstract landscapes and nature studies. I share these tutorials over on my Patreon page, The Outdoor Sketchbook Collective, where we have an accompanying community chat to share works in progress, ask questions, and share ideas. We have a monthly Zoom call as well, to share a bit more process live and get to know one another better. If you're watching this video at the time of posting, we're actually having our meetup tomorrow on the 20th of April at 8 p.m. via Zoom. So if you'd like to join us, you can click the link down below. If you're looking for more creative community or tutorials, consider checking it out through the link below. I think it's important to highlight that whilst I share this video with you now and the coming videos as part of the series Finding Your Flow, whilst I'm working, I myself am not always in the flow state. Like any other person, there's a million things going on in the background in the privacy of our own homes. As easy as things may appear to come on screen, it doesn't always feel that way in the process, and it's really important to know that that is in turn a part of it. Creating things isn't always easy, it's not always straightforward, and it's definitely not linear in my case. So if you're feeling frustrated that you are struggling to find the flow state, that is the purpose of these videos. I really hope that one thing I say across this series might help somebody out there to help find more ease in their art making, and that if you are struggling to get into the flow state right now, that is completely and entirely normal. Before I share close-ups of these pieces in their final state, let me tell you about what's coming up in the next video. I'm going to start teasing out ideas from these A5 pages into larger works on paper, so I can move around with scaled up marks more easily, and to continue on the technical side to develop material and colour combinations and layering. On the concept side, if you'd like to leave a word in the comments that you connect to the coast, or how marine environments make you feel, I'd really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to painting some of your contributions in the coming video. I wanted to wrap up this video with a huge thank you, as always, to my wonderful Patreon members. All of your support and enthusiasm really helps make these videos possible. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you outside.